If you've started the process of developing a software product and you're struggling to get past the planning stage, this video might help you. I'm going to show how I typically do project management for my own projects. In my last video, I covered how I had really painted myself into a corner by not properly managing scope creep. This is just a simple common sense approach that can help stop scope creep and also that feeling of overwhelm when you have a project that's just too large to see all at once. Don't look at what I'm suggesting here as a prescription. Everybody is different. Every project is different. You take what works and fit it into your existing workflow and just ignore the rest. I start with a simple markdown file inside of the project. And this is pretty much a discovery process. You can provide as little or as much detail that you want or need so that you can start creating the user stories in the tracking system of your choice like Trello. For this project, I'll have 3 buckets. First, I want to list out my tech stack. It seems to help me quite a bit just to record it. I seem to have an easier time moving past mulling over the stack once I have it in writing. For this project, I'm going to use Pocketbase for the database and backend APIs. And I'll use Angular, Bootstrap, and NG Bootstrap on the front end. The second bucket is security, and the details for security are also pretty easy to decide on. Pocketbase supports local accounts and OAuth 2 providers like Google, Microsoft, Apple, GitHub, and so on. I might add Google or another if I have enough time left when I implement everything else, but for now I'll just stick with local accounts. And I'll also depend on Pocketbase's built-in row-level security or API rules functionality to secure the application data. It really isn't row-level security. It's just rules that get applied with each API call. You should figure out a way to clearly show which items in your list you have committed to and which items you haven't. You might bold the items you're committed to or italicize the items you haven't. Just be consistent and don't go overboard with too much styling. If you can't find a way you can live with, leave the uncommitted items completely out of this document or put them into their own section. For me, everything in this document that doesn't end with a question mark is considered to be committed. This works for me, and I use the same style in every requirements markdown that I do. The third bucket is major modules. For the most part, I already know what my major modules are. I'll start by just listing them out. I don't want to go into too much detail on this document though. This is just an aid to get me going. A list of lists, I guess. The detail goes into the user stories. So major modules. I need to manage ideas, obviously. I need to manage the frameworks that are used to evaluate those ideas. I also need the evaluation process. And I would really like to get some reporting around the evaluations in too, but I won't have time, so I'll add a question mark. Next, I'll go module by module and list out the screens that need to be built, and then add as much detail as I need to create good, fleshed out user stories. I'm just hitting the peaks and valleys on this. Again, I don't want too much detail, but I will be using these bullet points as a guide for creating the user stories, so add anything that you think is important. In idea management, I need a screen to display a list of ideas. I want to avoid tables for this screen, so I'm going to use cards or panels or something similar. I have over 300 ideas in my current list, so I'll need some kind of paging or maybe infinite scrolling at some point. I'd also like to be able to filter the list, but for now it won't be necessary. I'll implement this if I have time at the end. I'll also need a way to add ideas to the system. And when I'm doing that, I need to make sure I have nice tight client-side validation. And I want to make sure I also give the user some way to associate tags to the idea as they're being added. I need a screen to edit ideas already in the system. And just like the create screen, I'll need good client-side validation. And I need to manage the associated tags. I also need a way to remove ideas from the system And when I'm deleting ideas, I also need to worry about cascading deletes for tags, evaluation scores, notes, and so on. And at some point, I want to explore archiving instead of deleting. Deleting is easier for now, so the archiving is just a nice to have. And here's your friendly reminder to like and subscribe. We post new videos often for software developers, software engineers, and software architects. Thanks. The last screen in this module is details. I want to be able to attach notes to ideas, to record my thoughts over time, to add requirements, list out competitors, etc. I'll need to add new notes, but I want to do that in a modal to avoid having yet another CRUD screen. The idea details page will list the notes out, and for now, I'm going to leave out the ability to edit or delete notes. The screens for framework management are very similar to idea management. I need a list screen, and I want the same rules for the same reasons. I want a create screen with similar rules. I want an edit screen also with similar rules, and a delete screen. For deleting frameworks, I need to worry about cascading deletes on the criteria and evaluations. And also, archiving instead of deleting is a nice to have. The framework details screen is different than the idea details screen. I want to be able to add criteria to the framework, and all the criteria management will be done in modals. I need to add to criteria, edit criteria, and delete criteria. The deletes will need to cascade delete any already created individual evaluation metrics. And again, I have the archiving question. I'll add a criteria details modal, but it's going to be far less busy than the other detail screens. It'll just display the data. In the idea evaluation module, I'm thinking of doing this with a wizard style interface. You'll walk through each criteria in the framework to evaluate the ideas. So I'll need an introduction screen that displays some sort of welcome message. Give some guidance, and the wizard will need navigation buttons. At the beginning, I'm only going to support two types of evaluations. First, a rating where you specify the minimum, maximum, and best values. I'm thinking a slider control for this. I'll want to show all the ideas that match the framework tag filters on the screen at the same time. This is more of a convenience than anything else. I think it'll help users by allowing them to say, like, if this idea is a 6, then this one's probably a 7, or something like that. I think it'll help give more accurate results to be able to compare. And of course, I'll need the navigation buttons. The second type of evaluation is ranking. I'll probably use a drag and drop list for this. And again, all the ideas that match the framework's tags need to be on the list at the same time. And of course, navigation buttons. And the last screen will be the results screen. I do think this screen has to be a table. The amount of data that's going to be shown, it'll be more easily displayed and digested if it's in a tabular format. Each idea will be a new row, and each column will be the criteria. Of course, with a summary column or a totals column at the end. And I think that covers everything I need for my project. If I did miss something, I'll come back and add it later. Now for a very quick weekly devlog. I've already made a lot of progress on this. I've finished most of the idea and framework management screens, including notes inside of the idea management module and criteria inside of the framework management module. I haven't done a final QA on them just yet, but so far everything's pretty smooth. I just have the evaluation screens and workflow to finish. To be honest though, that's where the meat of all this work is going to be happening. As you can see though, the progress is pretty good. I will finish this project by the end of the month, which is just less than a week away. There are several things that need attention, but aren't on my list. First is the overall style of the site. I'm not really happy with the appearance. It feels like every project I do looks exactly the same. Second is a code refactor. That one can definitely wait until everything is done completely. And third is the site footer. I'll have to create a user story for each of those. I hope this video was helpful for you. Project management can be a real blocker for developers, and it can just seem like an enormous task for business users. But, set aside that worry and just break the problem down into manageable chunks using your common sense, and you'll be through it in no time. Just go through your list of modules over and over until there isn't any more relevant detail to add, and you'll be finished. Until next time, happy coding.